Hey, what's up, guys? Couple things to start with. So, to begin today's thing, um, items of business. Basically, I want to remind you guys about the updated calendar on Courseden. It's above the syllabus, so you just go to where the syllabus lives. Hopefully, you know that by now. And just above that, you'll see updated calendar. Click on that. That's our updated due dates. Of course, all the assignments on Courseden also reflect this information, but I just want you to know sort of where all your resources are. Also, we're doing something different today with the video. There were problems with our earlier attempts. Of course, myself, just like you guys, I'm kind of figuring this stuff out as we go. I tested this one though. Had a little more time to do that. I think it'll go better. Okay, so what you have in front of you on Courseden, you have a student example. What we're going to do today, basically, I've decided at this point in the semester, not least of which because of the everything else that's going on. Really, all I want you guys to do, work on your papers, but keep checking in with this stuff as I post it. I can get at least one thing a week. I don't know that I'll do more than that just because that may be too much for you. But basically, all we're going to do from here on out, I'm going to post videos like this. I'll post student work. I'll give you my thoughts about it. Obviously, if you have questions about your own stuff or ideas or whatever, hit me up. We need to be talking via email or whatever. But as far as Courseden is concerned and our online class component, it'll pretty much just be explaining how we can improve work that you guys have given me, and I want you to use that as a model for your own approaches. Also, and I don't mean this to sound threatening, but there's no other way to phrase it, I can see not just the work you turn in, but if you happen to watch these. So yeah, that's how I take attendance. Anyway, all right. So the student example in front of you, a little bit of backstory first of all, because it's actually a couple of years old. Makes me feel old specifically because I remember when it happened, and you guys may not. I mean, first of all, you may not be a football fan, and Ray Rice was a football player, but also, I don't know how old you were when this happened, honestly, but you were kids. So basically, Ray Rice was a good football player for a good little while. He played for the Ravens. He was a running back. Just jacked dude. I think he's one of those guys. He's maybe 5'9" or 5'10", but he's like 230. He's just like this thick dude. Like this just. Anyway, he was pretty beloved. He seemed like a good guy. As far as you know about these, like the way we talk about celebrities in class, right? Like you just think, he seems like an alright guy. Well, at one point at the end of his career, as it turned out, he's walking through, I believe it was a casino, and his fiance, they get into an argument, and it's pretty heated. And I say all this, by the way, because there's video evidence of this that got released, and he knocks her out, like decks her, and she hits the floor, and man, it's like, whoa. So anyway, reports of this came out before the video. And the Ravens, obviously there was a press conference. I mean, you know how this stuff works, right? They came out and they're like, look, we're talking to Ray. This is the coach. He's like, we're talking to Ray. And he's a good dude. We know he made a mistake. We're trying to work through this. Which most people, I mean, obviously there's different sides to things like this. But a lot of people were kind of placated by that response. They're like, all right, they're saying they need to get more information. They're doing an investigation. Okay. Well, then the video got released, and you can go find it if you want. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but if you want a fuller idea of what we're talking about, it's a very short video, and like, wow. But yeah, he straight up knocks out his fiance. They later get married, which is interesting. And it's a hard watch. So once that got released to the public, public opinion swung pretty hard. And they were like, no, we need to suspend this guy. We need to cut him. I mean, other people were like, put him in jail because it is assault, all this stuff. Like it was pretty vitriolic. So the Ravens came back, and the NFL came out. And they by this time the NFL, had suspended him for 2 games. The NFL came out and like, okay, 6 games now. Well, after that, the Ravens just cut him. They cut him from the team. They kicked him off the team. He was older by that point anyway for a running back. Like he was like 30-ish, which I know that's not, I'm telling you right now, that's not old. But for an NFL running back, that's actually kind of old. So it effectively ended his career. Like his age coupled with the fact that no one really wanted to touch him because of like the sort of public sentiment, right? Pretty much ended his career. So what our student says right now for their thesis, and this is a working thesis, right? It's pretty banal, right? We know that stuff. I tell you the story or you go and look it up on Wikipedia, you could come away with that thesis pretty easily. We're not going to argue that in this paper. But what I plan to do here is to explain to you the steps we could take to have a better thesis. So the question we always got to think about is, again, what does this say about us? It's easy, especially in a story like this. This is crazy that a professional football player would do this sort of thing, right? Like, which is like, wow. And so you can kind of get caught up talking about that. Instead, what does this say about us that we react this way? What does it say about our reaction? And there's different ways to take that. I've decided that in this video, I'm gonna take it in a slightly different direction than what we've done before. I just want you to know your options. So to sum up everything I just told you in regards to that story, I got it down to a couple sentences. At first, the NFL really didn't seem to care. It's pretty clear, you know. Public opinion led to the 6-game suspension, so that tells us that public opinion can sway an organization, a multi-billion-dollar organization like the NFL. Okay, that's interesting. He got cut, which you could also argue was kind of due to public opinion. No one re-signed him. Public opinion. Essentially, this ended his career. Like, that's just summing all the sort of plot points up. Okay. So a working thesis I kind of gleaned from that. Public opinion can be a powerful but blunt tool. And I say it's a working thesis because, again, we need to work on that some. We need to, build complexity into it. But that's enough, I think, to get a paper started. Now, here's the important part. The first half is easy. Public opinion can be a powerful tool. That's half the working thesis. Yeah, that seems pretty clear. You'd still have to argue that. That would be like a body paragraph. But, I mean, how would you do that? So you could go find, and there's going to be articles on this, right? Just like all the other sort of examples I've given you, maybe stuff you've looked at. There's going to be articles that talk about the sort of public outcry as a result of, specifically in this case, that video getting released. And you could even think about like what was public opinion before it got released versus after. Like, that could be interesting. That would build complexity into our thesis. But with what we're working with, at least one body paragraph citing that public opinion and not just talking about the fact that people are upset, because again, that's clear. What we're thinking about is how that response moved the NFL to make a change, right? Like, we're basically saying Twitter ended this guy's career. That's nuts. So it's a powerful tool. That's something we can argue, I think, pretty easily. So that's why I'm saying, like, it wouldn't take more than a body paragraph. Okay. The harder thing, and I say harder because it takes more thinking, more explanation, okay? What do I mean by blunt tool? Well, I'm going to say it in the way that I wrote it, and then I'll explain it, okay? But basically, because our student in the example, you'll notice one thing he says, he feels like the punishment is kind of harsh. Like, and again, you may be of a different opinion if you see the video. I'm not sure where I stand on it, but our student is suggesting this guy who, to the best of my knowledge, had no real record of stuff like this before. Like, this is basically a one-time incident by the sound of it. It's an awful incident, but it's a one-time incident. And he and his now wife made up. They got married, right? So they moved past it. And the student is basically saying that for this one thing, as bad as it was, to have ended this guy's career seems harsh. Like, it seems a bit much. Okay? So when I say it's a blunt tool, it's very powerful because it does end his career. But that same notion that it ended his career, you could argue that public opinion can be a blunt tool, a blunt like a hammer. A hammer is a powerful tool, but it's very blunt. You're not going to perform surgery, right? Anything involving detail with a hammer, right? I hope that's a pretty good analogy. So what we're suggesting is that internet outrage is incapable of nuanced approaches. Nuance is gray area is stuff you got to think about and kind of work through details. So I have some explanation here, and this is every time I say explanation, that's analysis, right? That's what we're trying to do in our papers. One of the easier arguments I could think of is that online movements, by their very nature, so any online movement involving a bunch of people, by their very nature, are populist enterprises. Populist simply means grassroots, a lot of people sort of voicing their opinions, okay? But here's the problem with that, according to what our student's trying to get at. They're made up of a lot of people. So the only bits you really hear above the tiny individual voices is this generalized answer to the problem. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, within all the folks who were like, man, we got to like do something about this. 2 games is trash, which I happen to agree. 2 games is probably not enough as far as a punishment for this. But within that throng of people, everybody's going to have different ideas. Some people are like, put a jail on top of them, you know, like they go that hard. Other people are like, well, maybe suspend him 6 games, or maybe suspend him for the season, you know, give him another, give him like a do-over, you know, let him try to get his life back together next season. You know, that whole spectrum, right? But that doesn't really get represented because all the ideas within that spectrum, none of that gets represented because it's a single movement made up of many voices, right? So all the nuance, well, I think this, maybe we could figure that gets kind of lost, and you just get this one overarching answer, right? That you could talk about. Again, either with articles that talk about like the Twitter reaction, you could even maybe have a body paragraph illustrating that spectrum and basically argue how none of this really came to be, right? Like he got a really harsh punishment, but it wasn't the harshest that maybe some people were recommending, but he also didn't get like some of the lighter punishments. So like, it's almost like in this body paragraph I'm conceiving of, no one person was made happy, but the general thrust of this online outrage, this response, was somehow placated, perhaps. You'd have to research, right, to find that out. So again, to tie it all back together, our working thesis: public opinion can be a powerful but blunt tool. We need to build on that. We need to add to that. But at this stage, we're still just talking about building these papers, right? So absolutely one body paragraph on the fact that public opinion, the Twitter sphere, for the most part, is a powerful tool. You can easily talk about that. They got this guy fired, basically, okay? But the blunt tool stuff, that's going to be, I'm willing to bet, at least 2 body paragraphs. That's if you're like a master at explaining this stuff pretty quickly. To me, that's going to guide the rest of your paper. And it's probably going to take you in directions that I can't even foresee because I've not done the research. You're going to be thinking when you write, like I always say. But that's the kind of work we got to do, right? No matter who you choose, what they did, what their response was, again, what does this response say about us? The other option I took this time, just to fully explain myself, I kind of decided, well, I keep pushing you to talk about what the response says about us. I think this does too, but in this respect, public opinion can be a powerful but blunt tool. I'm kind of steering us toward thinking about that response itself, like how our responses work, how much power we have, but what do they look like as well, I guess. All right. I hope that helps. Like I said, I've been hearing from some of you, but most of you, I haven't heard from you at all. Like I said, I hope everybody's doing well. Stay inside, wash your hands, and yeah, I look forward to your work.